My husband, Michael Harper, was never the kind of man people described as loud or charismatic. His presence wasn't something that filled a room. It filled the spaces between things. He wasn't the storyteller at parties or the jokester in the family. He was the steady kind of man, the one who kept promises, the one who listened even when I didn't know how to put my feelings into words. He built love out of small, consistent gestures. A hot cup of tea on my bedside table every morning. A kiss on the back of my hand before he left for work. A blanket draped over my shoulders on cool evenings. But nothing, not even our carefully built rituals, held his devotion the way that old Mustang did. The car arrived in pieces, on the back of a friend's tow truck, when our son Ethan was 10. It was an eyesore, rust devouring the sides, mismatched doors, a shattered windshield. I remember standing beside Michael in our driveway, arms folded, staring at the wreck. "You bought a corpse," I said. He grinned, wiping grease from his hands. "No, sweetheart. I bought a heartbeat waiting to come back." For 20 years the Mustang became an extension of him. On weekends, when the sun streamed through the garage window in golden angles, Michael would disappear into that space with the radio humming old rock songs. I would bring him lemonade or coffee depending on the season, and he would look up with that glint in his eyes. The one that said he was exactly where he wanted to be. Grace would streak his face, his hair plastered to his forehead, knuckles scraped raw from tightening some stubborn bolt. But he was happy. "One day," he'd say, tapping the hood, "I'm going to take you for a drive in this beauty. Top down, wind in your hair." It became a dream I held on to. As Ethan grew older, he grew more distant. He wasn't interested in cars or restoration. He wanted quick rewards, instant results. He couldn't understand why his father would spend years working on something with no guarantee of success. "Why don't you just buy a new one?" he'd complain. "This thing is ancient." Michael would only chuckle. "Some things are worth fixing, son, not replacing." Looking back, I wonder if Ethan ever understood what his father meant. When Michael passed away, quietly, peacefully, with my hand clasped in his, the car was nearly finished. The paint shone midnight blue, deep as the ocean at dusk. The leather seats were newly sewn, soft as butter. Only a few finishing touches remained, and I told myself that once I found the strength, I'd complete them for him. But months went by, then a year. Grief clung to me like a heavy coat. Still, I found comfort in the garage. Sometimes I would sit in the driver's seat with my eyes closed, inhaling the scent of leather and imagining Michael's presence. The Mustang felt like the last place he still lived. Ethan, now grown and married, visited rarely. When he did, he would glance at the garage with mild annoyance, as if the car's existence inconvenienced him somehow. His wife, Hannah, always made a show of wrinkling her nose. "That old thing is taking up so much space," she once said. "You could turn that garage into a guest house or something useful." I didn't respond. She wouldn't have understood. On the morning everything changed, I woke early. The house felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears. I made tea, put on the cardigan Michael used to wear when he worked in the garage, and walked outside. The garage door whined as it lifted. I stepped forward, expecting to see the familiar curve of the Mustang's hood. Instead, nothing. The space was empty, bare, hollow. For a moment, I truly believed I was dreaming. That I had walked into the wrong garage. That the car, my husband's heart, the last piece of him, couldn't possibly be gone. But it was. My chest tightened, my breath cracking in my throat. Panic rose like a tide. Hands trembling, I dialed Ethan. When he answered, the truth came so casually, so coldly, that it shattered something inside me. "Oh," he said, as if commenting on the weather. "Right." I sold it. For a few seconds after Ethan's words, I simply stared at the garage floor as though the car might magically reappear if I stared hard enough. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning everything else. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, convinced I had misheard him. "You sold it." My voice cracked on the last word. "Yes," he said with a sigh heavy with annoyance. "Mom, don't make this a big deal." I sank onto Michael's old work stool, the familiar creak of the wood echoing through the hollow garage. The silence around me felt mocking. "A big deal," I whispered. "Your father spent 20 years, 2 decades restoring that car. It was his legacy, Ethan. It was? My voice broke before I could finish. Ethan interrupted, tone clipped. Mom, I know you're upset, but the car was just sitting there. You weren't doing anything with it. It made sense. No, I said sharply, gripping the edge of the workbench to stay steady. What you did doesn't make sense at all. That car wasn't yours to sell. It wasn't even in your name. How could you think? Because it was wasting space, he snapped. Hannah and I talked about it. She wants to go to Paris for our anniversary, and this was the easiest way to make it happen. I felt a numb heat spread through my chest. Shock and anger and heartbreak all tangled together. You sold your father's car, I said slowly, trying to process the words as they left my mouth, so your wife could have a vacation. It's not just a vacation, he said, indignant. It's Paris. It's a dream she's had for years. You know we don't have extra money right now. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. Ethan, you can't buy back memories with a plane ticket. He let out a scoff. Mom, don't be dramatic. Dramatic. My voice rose despite myself. Your father built this car bolt by bolt. Every inch of it has his fingerprints on it. And you didn't even tell me. You didn't ask. You just took it. He was silent for a moment, and when he spoke again, the impatience in his tone cut deeper than any words. Mum, you need to stop clinging to everything Dad touched. He's been gone for 3 years. You have to move on at some point. My breath caught. Move on, as if grief had an expiration date. As if love could be packed away like old clothes. You've always been sentimental, he added, almost disdainful. And it's not healthy, it's just a car. I mean, honestly, you should be thanking us. We got a good price. You can use some of it to fix the house or whatever. I don't want the money, I said fiercely. I want the car back. Well, Ethan said flatly. That's not happening. It's already gone. The dealer said they were reselling it today. Something inside me cracked then, quietly, the way glass breaks under heat. Not with a shatter, but with a soft, lethal sound that means it will never be whole again. I can't believe you did this, I whispered. If this is about Dad, he replied, voice softening as if he were the reasonable one. Wouldn't want you clinging to an old project. He'd want you to enjoy life. My lips trembled. You didn't know him as well as you think. He exhaled loudly. Look, Mom, I have to go. Hannah's already packing. You'll be okay. You're strong. Just don't make this into something it's not. Before I could respond, he ended the call. The silence that followed was suffocating. I stared at the empty space where the Mustang had once sat. The oil stains from Michael's work. The faint outline of tires on the concrete. Small ghosts that whispered of the life we had built. My husband had poured love into every inch of that car. It had been my refuge. My connection to him. The one place where grief didn't swallow me whole. And Ethan had erased it for a vacation. I don't remember walking back into the house. I only remember sinking onto the living room floor and sobbing until my throat burned raw. Hours passed, blurred and heavy, until tears gave way to a dull, aching emptiness. For the next 3 days, I moved through life like a shadow, eating little, speaking less, unable to sleep without waking in a panic. I avoided calls from friends, unable to explain what felt like a betrayal deeper than words. Then, on the 3rd afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something, intuition, fate, made me answer. Is this Mrs. Harper? A man asked, professional but uneasy. Yes, I croaked. Mom, this is Mark Turner from Turner Classic Auto Sales. I'm calling about your husband's Mustang. My heart stopped. What about it? I whispered. He hesitated. I could hear papers shuffling in the background. Your husband left something inside the car. Something important. You need to come now. My breath hitched. Something. What do you mean? Ma'am, he said softly. I think you should see it for yourself. And with those words, everything began to change. The drive to Turner Classic Auto Sales felt longer than it should have, even though it was only 30 minutes away. My palms were slick on the steering wheel, and my heartbeat thudded in my chest like a warning drum. Every worst-case scenario flickered through my mind. Had Michael forgotten some paperwork? Had something dangerous been found? Or was this simply a formality that would reopen wounds I wasn't ready to face? The dealership sat at the edge of town, a long glass building that gleamed under the afternoon sun. Rows of beautifully restored cars lined the lot, sleek silhouettes and polished chrome reflecting a world I'd never imagined myself stepping into alone. For a moment, I hesitated in the parking lot, gripping my handbag like a lifeline. Inside, the air smelled of leather, rubber, and that faint sweetness of new engine oil. A man in a crisp shirt and navy vest approached, his silver hair neatly trimmed. "Mrs. Harper?" he asked gently, as though he already sensed the emotional storm beneath my stiff posture. "Yes," I said, managing a nod. "I'm Mark Turner. Thank you for coming on such short notice." "Your call, it sounded urgent." He exhaled, an empathetic breath. It was. "Please, follow me." He led me through the showroom, past gleaming classics and expertly restored models, but I barely saw any of them. My vision tunneled toward the back corner where a familiar shape sat beside a tall, rolling toolbox. There it was. Michael's Mustang. Even from across the room, my breath hitched. The deep midnight, blue paint, the soft shine of the chrome trim. It was unmistakable. It was like seeing Michael's smile again after years without it. I moved toward it without thinking, as if drawn by instinct. I didn't think I'd ever see her again. I whispered, my voice barely audible. "We haven't touched anything," Mark assured me. "I thought it best you be here first." He opened the driver's door with reverence, as though the car deserved respect. And then he gestured toward the passenger side. Wu discovered something while processing the vehicle. A piece of carpet was loose. When one of my guys lifted it, this was underneath. He knelt and lifted the edge of the floor mat, revealing a thin but expertly installed metal plate. With a small tool, he clicked it open. A hidden compartment, one I had never known existed. From it he retrieved a small metal box, weathered but sturdy. He placed it in my hands carefully, as though handing over a piece of history. My fingers trembled. "You didn't open it?" "No, Mom," he said. We believed it was personal. A knot tightened in my throat. In the silence of the spacious showroom, my heartbeat felt loud enough for him to hear. I swallowed hard and opened the box. Inside were memories as delicate as butterfly wings. There were photos, old, curling at the edges, of Michael and me decades ago. Him leaning against the skeleton of the Mustang before the restoration began, his hair longer, his grin boyish. A picture of the three of us, Michael, little Ethan, and me, at a county fair, cotton candy melting down Ethan's fingers. Then, tucked beneath the photos, a velvet pouch. Inside the pouch was Michael's wedding ring, the one he stopped wearing when arthritis made the metal too tight. I pressed it to my lips, swallowing a sob. Then I saw the envelope. Anna written in Michael's steady handwriting. The tremble in my hands worsened as I slid the letter out and unfolded it. His words were simple, written with purpose, each sentence a quiet confession. He told me about the hidden assets, about the land deeds left to him by his father, about stock certificates he quietly invested in over the years, about how the car was meant to be a future safety net. For me, not for Ethan, whom he worried had inherited more of the world's selfishness than he realized. And most importantly, do not let anyone sell this car. It belongs to you. Only you. Tears blurred the ink. By the time I finished reading, Mark Turner had stepped back to give me privacy. When I looked up, he met my gaze with respectful seriousness. "There's more?" he said, lifting a file folder. "Your husband filed a legal restriction years ago. The car cannot be sold or transferred without your signed approval. The sale your son made was invalid. We're obligated to return the car to the rightful owner." The words sank into me slowly, like warmth thawing a frozen limb. "And your son?" I asked weakly. His jaw tightened. "Mom, what your son did was illegal. If you choose to pursue it, you have every right to reclaim not only the car but damages." I looked back at the Mustang. Michael's 20-year love letter, his quiet legacy, and something inside me shifted. For the first time since he died, I felt him standing beside me again. And for the first time since Ethan's betrayal, I felt something stronger than grief resolve. "Mr. Turner," I said, standing taller than I had in years, "I'd like to start the paperwork." The paperwork at Turner Classic Auto Sales moved swiftly. Every signature I placed felt like reclaiming not only the car, but a piece of Michael I feared had been lost forever. Mark Turner handled everything with the kind of efficiency that suggested he had dealt with lost treasures and betrayal many times before, yet his eyes reflected quiet admiration as he handed me the finalized forms. "This car is yours, Mrs. Harper," he said firmly. "And legally, it always has been. Your son had no right to sell it. If you wish, I can advise on what steps to take next regarding him." I nodded, swallowing the bitter taste of anger that had grown over the past week. Ethan's betrayal wasn't just a crime against property. It was a crime against memory, against loyalty, against love itself. And I was ready to make him realize it. Back at home, I stared at the Mustang in the driveway under the soft light of early evening. The blue paint gleamed like it had absorbed all the grief and joy it had witnessed. I ran my hand along the hood, feeling the bumps, the smoothness, the history embedded in every inch. Michael's presence seemed to radiate from it, almost tangible. That evening, I called Ethan. My voice was calm, almost eerily so. "Ethan," I said, "we need to talk." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Mom, don't," I interrupted. "You need to hear me out." I told him, slowly, deliberately, about the letter, the hidden compartment, the legal restrictions, and the dealership's confirmation. I left out nothing. Every detail of his betrayal, every flaw in his scheme, every legal and moral misstep. By the time I finished, Ethan was silent. The line crackled with his unspoken guilt. "Mom, I didn't think." "You didn't think," I repeated softly. "And that's exactly why Michael left instructions. He trusted you with nothing because he knew you'd make selfish choices." "But my voice hardened. "I am his widow, and I am his heir, and that car, and everything else he left, is mine." There was no argument after that, only silence, a recognition of defeat. The next morning, I drove the Mustang slowly through the streets of our town. With the top down, the wind tangled my hair and I laughed. A laugh I hadn't realized I had forgotten. Each turn of the wheel, each roar of the engine, felt like Michael's voice in my ear, telling me to keep going, to never let anyone take what was sacred from me again. But the sweetest part of all this wasn't the drive. It wasn't the return of the car. It was the quiet knowledge that Ethan, who had treated Michael's devotion with contempt, now had no control over it. Every time he tried to brag about Paris or the money he spent, he would remember that it had all been temporary, illegal, meaningless. Michael's legacy, and now mine, was untouchable. I decided on a small act of poetic justice. I drafted a simple letter, legal in tone but sharp in intent, detailing Ethan's unauthorized sale of the Mustang, attaching copies of the dealership's statements, and notifying him that he was prohibited from handling, selling, or even approaching any of Michael's remaining possessions without my explicit consent. I mailed it to him the next morning. When it arrived, I imagined his face as he read it: disbelief, guilt, and the bitter sting of knowing he had underestimated his mother, and the memory of his father. Over the next few weeks, life began to settle. I returned to the garage often, finishing the last touches Michael had left undone. A fresh coat of polish here, a small repair there. Each act was a meditation, a quiet communion with him. One afternoon, as I sat in the driver's seat, letting the engine hum beneath me, I realized that the Mustang had become more than a car. It was a vessel of love, grief, resilience, and justice. It was proof that some legacies could never be stolen, and some hearts could never be silenced. That night, I poured a glass of wine and raised it to the empty chair in the garage, speaking to him softly. "Michael, we did it," I whispered. "I promised I'd take care of everything, and I did. Your car, your love, your trust, they're safe. Always." Outside, the wind rustled the trees as if carrying his laughter, and I knew he was smiling. Proud of the woman I had become, strong and unyielding, carrying his legacy forward with dignity, and a touch of sweet revenge.